finally a panel on esports. And I'm happy that, even though we're coming to the end here, that there's still a few people in the audience, so that's always good. But I think we should get right to it. This panel, we will be discussing esports, within iGaming as a topic, and I think it's come to everyone's attention, especially in the last 18 months, that esports has a very important role to play in the iGaming space. Not least as a diversification tool for raging pandemics, but also, for addressing a completely new user group, and not least, it provides a sort of evergreen content for the iGaming sector and for the sportsbooks, and it allows them to, avoid cyclicality. And these are some of the subjects that we will get into more. But before then, I thought I would introduce myself. My name is Oskar. I'm CEO and founder of Abios. We are now a Kambi Group company. We were acquired roughly 2 months ago. But enough about me. Daniel, maybe you want to introduce yourself.
Yep. First of all, very nice to be here. Hope you have some energy left this last, 30 minutes? Before we can go out and enjoy the sun. So my name is Daniel. I'm the CEO of a leading esports media company in the Nordic region called Fragbite. So that's me in short.
Hi everyone. Thanks for being here. Last panel of the day, and thanks for iGaming Next for giving us this opportunity. My name is Mark Thorne. I'm the CMO of Esports Technologies, a US-listed company focusing on esports technology for the wagering space and B2C operations.
And to conclude the panel, I'm Flavien, the CEO at PandaScore. We are a data company providing statistics and odds to esports businesses, and gambling operators is a big part of our customers.
All right, let's get into it. So, addressing the evergreen topic first. A lot of the traditional sports betting companies have started to consider esports as what I call a filler product. That it basically is a filler between, big football games or ice hockey matches or whatever it might be. And so my first question to you guys is, I wanted to open up a discussion around that on, do you see the merits of esports as a filler product? And do you think that is the place that it should have within the sportsbook, or should it be a standalone product, or maybe both? Mark, maybe you want to start.
Yeah, sure. There's no doubt that throughout the past 18 months, 2 years, that esports has become a very important filler product, helping not only to address the lack of mainstream sports activity during the COVID pandemic, but I think a lot of sportsbooks are looking at it, as you mentioned now quite rightly, Oskar, as an evergreen product, helping to flatten out the seasonality curve. Should it be seen as a filler product, or should it be seen as a standalone product? I think that very much depends on each individual operator's situation. I think if you're a mainstream retail and online operator, esports is a filler product, for sure. If you're looking to tackle esports seriously, then it's got to be seen as its own vertical. And more importantly, each individual game in esports needs to be seen as its own sport as well.
Flavien?
Yeah, historically it's interesting to look at the first, obviously with COVID and the pandemic, esports was a natural filler, only thing that happened. And progressively, with the coming back of sports events, esports, or at least the main esports, disappeared, kind of, on the big sports book. And when I say main, I saw like League of Legends, Counter-Strike, and a few others. But when you think about it, other type of esports, like the sports simulation, are actually still playing a filler role right now. Like virtual FIFA and virtual football with FIFA is a great 24/7 product, and it's good filler, and it's also like more natural coming from football to bet on FIFA than coming from football and betting on League of Legends, obviously. So it depends on kind of the type of esports also. Some esports that are kind of linked to sports works better, and potentially in the future we will see games like Rocket League, which is football played by cars, a very fun game. That could also be an interesting link between the sports world and the esports world, either as a filler or maybe as a proper esports.
Yeah, Flavien, you're touching on a pretty interesting topic there that I think we want to make abundantly clear for the audience. It's that, esports is obviously not one product. I think this should be obvious by now. It's many different games, many different sports, you could call them. And as such, maybe we could clarify what games, that is, what esports do you think are most suitable as filler products, and which are perhaps less suitable as filler products and should be built in a more endemic manner? Flavien, maybe you can start again.
Yeah, so sports simulation are the first ones that comes to mind. FIFA, NBA 2K, NHL, like the games that are based on real sports. There is also Formula One, NASCAR games that are also very interesting, depending on geographics. And then you arrive to another type of esports that are Rocket League. It's kind of like sports, but not really. And then the further you go away from like sports simulation, you arrive to games like Counter-Strike, which is easy to understand. So anyone could look at a game and enjoy it, but still quite further from sports. So maybe too far from sport to be a filler, and it's more towards an like esports audience. And then there's other games that are even beyond, like League of Legends. Nobody understands League of Legends. You haven't played like 5 years this game. So.
Yeah, thank you. So moving on, I think that esports obviously has its role to play as a filler product, both for certain games. But what about other use cases for the iGaming industry and for the traditional sportsbooks? I mean, do you consider esports, for example, to be a good way for traditional sportsbooks, to develop a user acquisition tool to sort of attract a new and younger audience? And as a second question to that, for discussion here, should the traditional sportsbooks and iGaming companies, try to convert the younger audience, perhaps the traditional esports bettors, to the regular sports or to the regular casino products, or should they be kept separate? Daniel, maybe you want to comment?
Yeah, I mean, if we really start by looking in the target group that are active in the esports scene, to start with your first question, I mean, this is normal people, primarily men. 18-35 is I would say, the core of the target group that are interested into esport gaming. So for an operator, I think you can see this in two different ways, right? Of course, as a user acquisition, it's a powerful channel to reach this target group that has a higher level of will to actually bet compared to maybe other target groups. So it's a powerful channel to get user acquisition. Is this the cheapest? No. But to really, really engage the audience, you need to do it in the right way, on a long term, and to provide some kind of value towards the target group. So yes, I think esport can be a user acquisition channel, but also on the other hand, it's a way for an operator to also integrate and talk to the audience and to flirt with their esport offer and get that into the channel as well.
Yeah, Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with most of what you said, Daniel. I think the demographics are a bit wider than what you said, but for sure, esports is and should be looked at as an acquisition vehicle for traditional sportsbooks. How you go about that acquisition, I think that's a whole different panel on its own. I think it's very important to focus on acquisition costs of an esports customer is inevitably less than a casino customer, let's say. But once you've acquired that customer, yes, traditional sportsbooks, just by virtue of how traditional sportsbooks and traditional multi-vertical operators function in terms of cross-sell, inevitably that acquired esports player database, there will be an attempt to cross-sell them into casino at the end of a CRM roadmap, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, as a bookmaker, you're building the future if you're investing in esports. In 20 years, most young people will care about esports and not about sports. So I think it's important to build right away and invest energy and money into esports, because also your competitors might do it before you, and you want to be in a good spot and you want to differentiate early on. So I think it's just for me it's a no-brainer, but I'm part of...
Yeah, but you are on to something interesting there, to be first. Yeah. I mean, still the esport community see this kind of brands coming in, enabling value to the community as the winners. So operators out there, do it fast and do it right, because there still is a gap to fill there for brands to really take that position and to be seen as an enabler. That's something that the community will love as you are providing a value to the community.
I think that's really, really important. I think if a iGaming operator goes about acquisition or trying to acquire part of that huge total addressable market that is let's say the esports viewers around the world, in the same way they try to acquire casino customers or football fans, it's not going to work. Esports players consume their sport and consume media in a completely different way.
Yeah. But it's quite, to continue on that, I mean, there are still regular people, right? They just have another glasses when they look into esports. So I'm a gamer. This is how I look. 32-year-old, have 2 kids. I love to play computer games, but still I love football, right? But as soon as I'm into the esport world, I put my esport glasses on. I expect the communication towards my passion to be customized, right? So, and that's something that I think we might come into later, but that's something I think the industry is lacking a bit.
All right, so moving away a little bit now from the user acquisition, and maybe instead talking about the user activation. So, I would like to for you guys to discuss a little bit and share your thoughts on, how can we build the sportsbook and iGaming products for esports users? Should we just look at, what is it that works in general in traditional sports and take whatever is a winning concept there and then just, copy that and apply it to esports, same but different? Or, do we have a completely new platform and a completely new environment that we can, and a new user group that we can activate and that we need to activate in new ways? I mean, Daniel, maybe you want to kick off this one as well.
Yeah, well, I can continue what I said previously. I think the short answer to your question is no. You can't just copy the offer that you do for football into esports. It's 2 different sports, and within esports you have diversity in that also, many titles within that kind of category. So you need to see this target group as this is a subculture, right? Understand the audience. How do they get engaged? What triggers them? It's based on the value you create, what you give back to the audience. So you need to adapt the communication. Also, I think by saying that, to make the audience feel that you understand them. So with that being said, yes, I think you should have at least adapted offers on the website, maybe have a own design of the website that look and feel esports. But yeah, the core answer here is that no, you can't just copy. It needs to be adapted to really engage with the esport audience.
Yeah, and these are questions that the 2 of you also think about every day, I assume. So, who wants to?
I have the blueprint.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, it's something that in our company we focus a lot on the product and development of products for esports betting. And what Daniel said is spot on. You cannot simply copy paste what's been done for football or what's been done in the sportsbook industry and expect it to work for esports. It's one of the reasons I think that esports can be one of the main drivers of innovation in sportsbook in the next 12 months to 10 years. I think innovation in sportsbook has stagnated somewhat. If we look back at the main key innovations in sportsbook over the past 10 years, there's maybe 3 or 4. I think looking at the problem from a UI, UX perspective, right round to a messaging and, like Daniel mentioned, promotional offering, you really have to understand your audience and design your products, your websites, your apps, and how you address that audience specifically for esports. And the innovation that comes from that can actually end up benefiting sportsbook as a whole.
Yeah, to go beyond, you have to understand who we are as gamers. We are used to play video games that are usually complex. We are used to interactivity. We are used to real time. We are usually tech savvy. And the experience we're expecting from betting should be at the same standard. And there is a lot of things that are very interesting to explore, thinking like micro betting, for example, short feedback loop, more engaging. This is something that esports fan would love. I'm also thinking about what's recently being pretty hyped around the NFTs and like the skins that you have on Counter-Strike. Those are, it's not just betting, it's also owning. You own the skin of the weapon that you use all the time, and it's the one that no one has, and so on and so forth. That's also something that the gamers would probably look for when they're betting. They want something more than just betting, probably. They want more interactivity, probably more towards the stream experience. That's what they expect as gamers, kind of, because they're used to so much interactivity and so much. I mean, they're power users usually. They want a lot of options. So definitely.
iGaming is about entertainment. Whether you're talking about sportsbook, casino, bingo, poker, esports is definitely about entertainment as an activity and as a betting activity. And what Flavien touched upon, which was the time between placing a bet and receiving that feel-good factor of I've won, right? You get that with the slot machine instantly. When you're playing an esports game, when you do something successfully, when you shoot somebody in Counter-Strike, you get that feeling, you get that release of endorphin right away. So why should their betting experience be any different? If that's what they're used to, that's what we need to strive to achieve.
I agree. I still think there are some offers in the current sport books that can work for esport games. I mean, for example, just bet on a winner in an important CSGO match, for example, still higher that excitement around watching the games still. And I can also understand it might be hard to have this kind of, for a big sports book to have odds on that. Who will be the next killer? I mean, people shooting each other every second in that game. But still, what I'm trying to come here is that, what I'm trying to get to the point here is, there are so great power in this community, right? And like you were saying previously here, they need to feel that they are seen. And what is esport built on? Community. So I think the way to go here is to build esport betting around community. That could be built on gamification. You're talking about that now. What not create a battle pass that inspire people to bet in some kind of engaging creation. So I think we should look how we can engage with the community in various gamification models. I think that's the way to go. Community-based activities will and form, I would say, the future of esport betting.
One of our customers, they have a chat, like on Twitch, but on their betting site. So you chat with the people that bets, and they're exchanging, oh, I bet on this one, oh, they lost again. And everyone is like, oh, you shouldn't have bet on this one, and so on and so forth. And it really works well. I agree with you 100%, like community is something that is really not leveraged at the moment, and that could be more.
And also maybe a bit of lack of knowledge. Because there is quite hard to bet on esports today. You can go into these big major operators and you will find it, sorry guys, but way too off. It's like in the bottom, and spelled wrong often, which is important if you're communicating to the audience. So also I think there's a gap to fill, also being an enabler by teaching how you can bet in esports, because I promise you there are a lot of people in the community that want to do this, but they don't really know how to do it also. So that's also some kind of value you can create as an operator to show that you also present some knowledge around actual esport betting.
I think one of the best ways to address that education point that you brought up is through community.
Yeah.
Engage with the target audience on their terms. Engage with them on Discord, for example. Educate them. A lot of this total addressable audience probably doesn't even know what betting, on a 1x2 game, what 2.5 means for them, right? And if we get to the UK with fractional odds, then they definitely don't, because they're probably not even taught fractions at school anymore. But there's an educational process for sure, and how you go about that, in my mind, is definitely through community building. Yeah.
All right, so what I'm hearing from you guys is that, both the user acquisition and the user activation here is, needs to be done in a completely different manner as to traditional sports. I mean, it's not same but different. It's actually new and different. It's what it seems like you all are agreeing to. And, I want to ask you something, maybe that is a curveball here that you guys didn't prepare for, but that I think that maybe somebody in the audience might be wondering. So let's say somebody in the audience here is, running an iGaming business, a traditional sports book, and they're hearing what you guys are saying and realizing that, okay, esports is a strategically important area for us, but we need to do something new. We need to understand the actual, subculture. We need to understand the people and the users. You don't need to answer too long about this, but how should they go about, handling this? Do they need to hire esports experts internally in order to address this issue and in order to understand? Or, can they work with really knowledgeable suppliers? And I think, Flavien and myself here might be a little bit subjective, but it'd still be interesting to hear, your thoughts on that. Flavien, maybe you could start.
Yeah, it's if you want to focus on esports, or at least give the esports product the love it requires, you'll have to work with people that understand the market. So I think one of the first steps is to find people internally that would be the advocates and that understand this. And I spoke so many times to bookmakers, and I spoke to the one guy that knows esports. The job title didn't make sense in the meeting we had, but still, he was the esports guy. So he was relevant, and he was trying to bridge the gap between us and the rest of the management of the company. So I think that's one first good thing. And obviously, when you work with companies like Understand Esports, like all of us here, we're here to help. Because our job is not only just to provide you technology, odds, data, content, but it's also to allow you to do your job at the maximum efficiency. So if we have to explain you what market works better, what's the wording, we'll do it because it makes sense for everyone. We're here to evangelize on esports. So working with third parties that are esports specific, esports experts, I think it's very important. It really helps you have the right approach and a bit of guidance, I would say.
Yes, suppliers and partners are key, for sure, but people are even more important. And it's not rocket science. If you're running a traditional sportsbook, would you hire a football content writer that fell in love with football a week ago? Or would you want the content writer that's been following football since he could just about walk? Similarly with traders, so it's about people. You definitely need in-house expertise to help and advise, and make sure that you begin nurturing a culture of esports within the company as well. I think that's vital.
I agree, and to some point I disagree, because I think there are so many good companies today, consultant companies like yourself and myself, where you might not need to have the expertise in-house as in-house. There are a lot of agencies out there that are working with big brands to help them to really, like you're saying here, how should we communicate? How can we do this? So I think there are, specifically in esports, in this segment, there are really good agencies that can come in as in-house agencies to work as a consultancies, but still be far into your strategy. So, because also, when you're trying to achieve what you want to achieve in this segment, you still need to have the whole package of knowledge. It's not only the content creator. You need also the community owner or community knowledge, the production knowledge, etc. So there are full agencies out there for operator that I could recommend, not only myself, but as a good first step. Because in the end, you need to trust the process. Try, all right? It doesn't need to be that you're sponsoring the biggest global event in the world. Try. Trust the people that know this and try and see the effect. But one thing I just want to say, there is nothing called one-hit wonders in esports. We're not talking about Britney Spears music here. In esports, to really engage the audience and get the conversion, it's continuous exposure long term. So, of all the campaigns and all the successful marketing campaigns out there, has the same recipe. Long-term engaging exposure. Yeah, that was just my USP.
Yeah,
yeah, sorry, I will sing that later.
It sounds like a Britney Spears song, actually, long-term exposure. No, just want to add on that quickly. Yeah, and it's managing expectations. I think esports, you know, even as far back as 7-8 years ago, when sportsbooks started adding it on as a sport type, a market type, there was a huge expectation, and they weren't necessarily realistic. So it's about managing expectations at a higher level as well, as to what's possible and within what time frame as well.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you guys. I think we're running out of time here. So Flavien, Mark, Daniel, I want to thank you all for coming on. Thank you guys in the audience for listening to us. And, you know, we've known each other. We've been working for many, many years. And I look forward to, you know, continuing to work on esports and, yeah, making people out there more knowledgeable about the whole space. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.